Good evening. At 6:30, I'm going to call to order meeting number 1892 of the East Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission. We are located live here in the John Daly Room of the Town Hall, as well as on the Zoom platform. I'm going to start off the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stacy did.
Okay, we have a quorum. We have all 5 regular members as well as our alternate present tonight. Are there any added agenda items? There was a legal notice. The East Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 8th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Details regarding how to attend will be published on the commission's agenda and will be made available on the town's website. PZ 2025-06, the applicant owner is JMC Realty LLC, is requesting a site plan review special use permit for section 502 of the East Windsor zoning regulations for the construction of a 7,920 square foot commercial building used as a contractor's office and storage yard located at 265 South Main Street, map 12, block 23, lot 57. Zone is B2 and A1. A full copy of the application is available on the Planning and Zoning Commission's webpage of the town's website. All interested persons may attend this meeting and provide verbal or written comment regarding this application. And this was posted in the Journal Enquirer on March 28th, 2025, again on April 4th, 2025. We are at the public participation part of our meeting. Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to speak on a topic that is not on tonight's agenda? Is there anyone online that would like to speak on a topic that's not on tonight's agenda? None, we'll move on. Approval of minutes. We have the minutes from our March 25th, 2025 meeting. Does anyone have any edits or comments? Okay, so yes, ma'am.
Notation, it does say motions and not minutes at the top.
Right.
Okay,
And we typically have a notation that says the meeting minutes are not official until they're approved at a subsequent meeting.
anyone else have anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our Tuesday, March 25th, 2025 meeting 1891 as presented with the header change to meeting minutes instead of meeting motions.
There is a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Receipt of applications. There was one application received this week. It's PZ 2025-07. The applicant owner is Central AS LLC. Peter A. Gary trustee is requesting a site plan review for site work and new construction of an 8,400 square foot commercial pre-engineered steel metal building for automotive repairs and sales for a used car dealership located at 26 Main Street, map 71, block 11, lot 6-6. Zone is a B2. This application will be heard at a future meeting. Performance bonds, actions, permit extension, road acceptance, we have none. We're gonna move on to our continued public hearing, PZ 2025-05. The applicant owner is Araya Hospitality Group LLC, is requesting a site plan review special use permit for the general development plan of a 20,664 square foot Aldi supermarket and a future restaurant with drive-through located at 51 Prospect Hill Road, map 112, block 4, lot 26. The zone is HIZ. Who's here to speak on this application?
Real estate manager, market chain, and Joe Beliscus, CHP, traffic engineer, is going to talk to you a little bit about the traffic. So I know there were some concerns at the last meeting and some questions specific to a number of different items: traffic, phasing, landscaping, restaurant, deferred parking, and so forth. And my partner Tim put a memo together that I think we all had about that came out, I think earlier last week, that addresses a lot of those concerns. And I wasn't planning on going through one of these individually. I'm not sure if I have the relation to but there was a couple of things in here that I didn't find. And Tim was here for any questions different to the actual design of the site. We got some information that may be pertinent to parking. I know there may have been a little bit of concern about that and the full parking that we showed. And Joe's going to talk to you a little bit about the traffic report and the addendum that they put together to address, I think, some of your concerns that the commission had regarding the traffic. But specifically, let me just start with Tim's now and talk about a couple of things. Would you put the general development plan on my?
Is that what you want, Jay?
Yeah, I think that's it. So I'm just going to go over a couple of these items quickly that one of them related to the high-rise sign. I think its location and the square footage of the sign. The sign's located basically on the southwest corner of this particular property. It's out of the way, obviously parking and driveways and so forth. And the total square footage of the sign is 200 square feet, and that covers both the Aldi supermarket and the future restaurant with the drive-through that's shown on the development plan. And just to be clear, and I think everybody is on board at this point, is that the restaurant drive-through is not going to be built at this time. That will be back when they have a specific tenant. We'll have to come back and move to another site plan review. It's shown here, but Tim has removed it from all the other plans and the plans that can make it clear. The only thing that does show up is when we get to the landscape plan, the perimeter plantings do show up on that site along the southerly property line, westerly and the easterly property line. And those will put in, will go in as part of the Aldi development. So perimeter plantings will be there, but nothing else at this point in time. So the high-rise sign is located on this particular plan. I think in the data block with regard to signage and square footages, it's spelled out that the total total square footage is 200 square feet, and that's the shared side between the two tenants. The total, the maximum height is at 65 feet. The phasing, I think that's pretty straightforward as we went through this, and it does show up now in the general plan of development and the other plans that they said, plans that all of the reference to the restaurant and the drive-through and parking and so forth has all been removed. The trees are shown all the way around. The landscape plan, the truck maneuvers, that was submitted, I think that's a SK drawing that shows you how the trucks are getting out of the site. The delivery area for the future restaurant was also shown on the general development plan. That's spelled out here in the letter. The third parking is identified again as well in the general development plan. So the first parking on the southerly side, area of the proposed restaurant, as well on the westerly parking field adjacent to the driveway area or the loading area. And I think that's all apparently well spelled out. I think everybody's on board as to how that works and where it is. The one thing that I will add a little bit in terms of parking, I know there was some concern about what's in your parking regulations in terms of the numbers of spaces and what the tenant Aldi is typically looking at in their sites. And it's 95 spaces is what they typically require. Your regulations require more than that, and code knows as preferred spaces. I can tell you that not that I do a lot of grocery shopping. Occasionally, my wife will corral me into going with her to the grocery store, and I've been to the Aldi store in Vernon quite a few times. And according to Bruno, that is one of the busier stores in this area. And it functions with the 95 spaces. It's been expanded once the store has. It's gone through a rehab. But I'm going to say I've probably been there a dozen times since it opened. And sometimes it's very busy, sometimes not. I've never had trouble finding a parking space. There's always plenty of spaces. Usually fairly close to the building. I don't think I've ever parked way out front closer to Route 83. And what I found is there's always spaces available on the side, which for some reason nobody seems to want to pull over on the side, but there's always empty spaces there. And those are fairly close to the door to give you enough. But I gotta say, I've never had any issue with finding a parking space at that particular store. Although that is the only one I've ever felt that happens to be the closest one to the house. So in terms of parking, it seems to work fine, at least in the Vernon location. The screening, so apparently there was some concern from some of the residents on Prospect Hill Road across the street. And I understand that concern. I would be concerned as well if I were living there as to, what's going to be built here? How's it going to function? Is it noisy? Is it dirty? What are the hours? What are we going to be able to see? And I guess there was some concern about headlights. So Tim and I took a look at that and went through a number of different thoughts and considerations as to how we could at least mitigate it to some extent. Of course, the first thing is we always think of the fence, but we've got a retail development here, so putting a fence is probably the tenant is going to want. They're going to want the visibility. So we thought, well, how can we screen headlights? So if you flip over and go down to the landscape, sorry, bouncing here around here. I think it might be sheet 9.
Yeah, sheet 9.
Sheet 9. I have that same trouble with my laptop. It's So anyway, what we did here is we took a look at, like I said, took a look at a number of options. evergreen trees are gonna grow too high and, they're gonna block the building, the visibility of the building, and you know the tenant's not gonna want that. We do have some street trees that we incorporated into the landscape area along the front of that parking bay that faces, Prospect Hill Road. But what we did do is we added a hedge that covers the front of that entire row of parking spaces. It's a boxwood hedge. It's an evergreen shrub. Never loses its leaves, if you will. It's not a deciduous shrub. And we're calling out for 3 to 4 footers to start, and I think it should be maintained at about 5 feet. So it would be a solid hedge, similar to a privet hedge that you might see in front of somebody's house. For years, I had it in my house, most people did. You would see a Japanese yew type hedge, which this could be. Those probably grow a little faster, need a little more maintenance than the boxwood does. I've got some boxwoods in front of my house now. I like them. And they will screen the lights at that height. We thought 5 foot would be good, even if somebody's got a full-size SUV, the headlight's not gonna be that high. So I think it'll block the lights from shining to anybody that's across the street. We also took a little bit of a look at the elevation. So when we look at the site and we look at where we are in the parking area and look at that elevation, and then we come across the street and the first residence going to the north, I don't remember the name. I don't know if I wrote that. I mean, the first residence to the north, there's one lot directly across. It's a vacant lot that's actually owned by the development team, but the next one to the north, he's quite a bit lower than we are in elevation. So if you were standing there in his front yard and looking at this site, he looks straight across the street. He's actually going to be looking at the building, but if he looks to the south and to the west, off to his left, he can look at the parking area, and he's going to be looking uphill, if you will. And once that line of sight gets over the top of the hedge, which is going to be something like this, he's actually probably going to be looking over the top of the cars as well. I'm not sure how much of the parking field you'll even see based on the height of the hedge, because the hedge is going to block a lot of the visibility. So I think it'll work fairly well. As I said, directly across the street is a vacant lot owned by the development group, and the next lot south would be the Starbush property, which is higher in elevation because the road is sloping as we go north and coming down in elevation. The Starbush property is going to have a little better view. They're similar in elevation to us, but again, I think this 5 foot hedge will do a pretty good job of screening the view of any headlights that might be facing towards the street in that location. So that's been added to the landscape plan and called out. And I think I was going through the rest of this, most of the stuff is fairly straightforward. I think don't do the job of all these questions. We just put together a fairly comprehensive memo that I saw the other day. Goes through a lot of the information that we submitted to you and what's required in terms of considerations for approval. So I don't have a whole lot more to say in terms of the questions that came up. If there's more questions, we're all here to answer questions. But I think at this point, I would like to have Joe come up, Joe from BHB, and talk to you a little bit about the traffic and the amendment that he put together and practically some questions, for that. So I think that's one of the talk to you about that.
For the record, my name is Joe Baltus. I'm director of transportation service in BHB. I've got 36 years experience in traffic studies. I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. I'm also a nationally certified professional traffic operations engineer. So I'm a traffic geek. I love traffic, I love moving cars. I like what I do. I helped Charlie with the certified BHB, the first study, as well as the addendum that was submitted. And I'll get into the presentation last month regarding the traffic study. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the addendum. And just real quick, I mean, we did this traffic study, as you heard, the usual traffic counts, analysis, gathered information, and showed that there wasn't really much of an impact on the project. So the addendum covered a couple things that I'm aware of in terms of what I looked at, the crash history, there was a comment, from the resident regarding the crash history. And it was outdated, it was, need to be updated, the crash history now is more, available. In the past, it would take a year to get last year's data. So we updated the crash data that you have in your addendum, if you have a copy of that, and didn't see much of a change. The crash data, from the previous 3 years to this year. There are a lot of crashes at the 3 study area intersections. Typically what we see at these intersections, signalized, a lot of traffic in the peak hours. But no fatalities, no significant, injury crashes. A lot of, front to rear ends, you can see that. I also took a look at, in terms of crashes, the Capital Regional Council of Governments did the Regional Transportation Safety Plan. You just Google that and find it. And out of that, it's basically the Prague Council of Governments does a regional study. We actually worked in that actually for Prague. And we looked at all the towns, we go to the towns, we meet with them, we look at crash data, and they updated for 2023. And it didn't say like there's a problem here, but it said that there's some recommendations at the intersection of Route 5 and 140. Signal time optimization was one of them. Another recommendation was put a roundabout there. So is a possible improvement. So that's what the state is, or DOT is recommending that they're gonna look at. So it's not like do it, it's more like a long-term thing. So they're looking for a high crash location. So that was something they recommended, be provided as part of that. So from a crash history standpoint, we didn't really see any changes from the previous data to this data. We didn't see this traffic generating, impacting the crash rates. They're signalized intersections, they're busy, you get mostly rear crashes. So didn't see that changing from the traffic study for the new data. That was one thing, crash history. And that's summarized for you in the addendum. And also was the capacity analysis. So there was a comment regarding the Calamar development in North Road that's under construction, 122 units, 55 plus housing development. Not a big generator. So we did incorporate that traffic volume into the study. It was mostly on Route 140, east-west, not a lot of north-south traffic. So we incorporated that into the traffic study, recrunched all the numbers, the analysis that was in the original study, and didn't really see a change. Because it's mostly east-west, wasn't going by the site, if you will. And it's not really a high generator. 120 units is not a high generator traffic. So, but we did the analysis for the record, so that was included. We looked at the mixed-use development I was talking about to the west of 91, and don't have a lot of information about it. And it's not pending or planned, so we don't really have any hard information incorporated. So we didn't include that in the numbers. That development will need to incorporate this development numbers when they come in. And that'll have an impact to the west of the interchange 91, and they'll be looking at that. So we did not incorporate that. So we updated the analysis. That's in the amendment. That's going to be the addendum we submitted. So I can walk through it. There's the updated crash analysis there. A lot of traffic numbers here. Then there's the analysis table. So we updated the analysis table. These tables basically show you the intersections in the study area, the site driveway, 5 and 40. Oh, by the way, I do know each one here. I did Brokentown, Sophie's Hartford, but I've been coming to Sophie's Pizza since I was dating my now wife. So I know this area pretty well. I know it through the peak hours, so I'm pretty familiar with it. So I can say that I do understand it. I've driven through it again tonight, but I do know it very well. So I understand there's any concerns about traffic itself. I'm very familiar with that. So the tables were updated. Not really any change from what we had before. You can grind through all the disconditioned, no bill, all the movements. And what you're looking for is a significant change, right? In terms of, as a level service change, is a delay change significantly, 2 letter grades, like a C to an E or a D to an F. And you don't see that with this. You don't see it with the addendum or the site generated traffic. There are some changes, but nothing here that says that this is significant. Okay, when I look at this and went through the numbers, nothing's going to be saying, well, there's an issue here. Certainly, the Route 5 intersection 140 could be retimed, possibly, and trying to optimize the timing. And that's something that DOT will be looking at when we look at that and say, hey, here's your study, thank you. Look at the curb cut. And they will look at this and say, well, you know what? Or there's a planned project. The department is usually looking to upgrade signals and retime them after a certain period of time. Haven't looked at the list, but with the recommendation and the RTSP, might be looking at. So, yeah, Jack could probably use some optimization, but look at the timing itself, but that's a DOT thing, we'll address that with DOT, takes a look at the approach. So that's kind of what I had for a presentation, glad to answer any questions, and there's also updated drawing figures as well. Real, for the needs of each everything, so we did that, there's nothing here that says there's any problems here, with addressing comments. Glad to answer any questions you may have. Yeah, this is all. I can hang around too as well, any public.
I'll start down the end there. Wayne, do you have any questions? No? Stacy? Dave?
I'm good, sir.
Ann?
Maybe you could just help me understand a little bit.
Sure.
I guess when I look at the second page of table 2, continued. And I look at overall,
Yes,
and overall, I see kind of C grades now and future becoming D.
yes, that's what I was talking about.
That's what we're
Saturday.
talking about
Saturday, yeah,
as DOT needs. to
that's what I was
fix the
saying,
light.
that's what I was saying, that could use some retiming, okay? I could use some retiming, and I expect DOT, like I said, the CROG, RTSP said that, and we can talk to DOT, you know, we can ask them for planning it, like they are routinely updating traffic signals. I don't look at the age of the signal, it might be on the list, but it could be on the list, but I expect that they'll be looking at that as part of the approach permit. They'll be looking at it and say, this may need to be retimed, they may ask us to do. Okay, they may, and if it's not programmed in 5 years, they may say, hey, you're here with an application for an approach permit, we want you to retime that signal. Meaning, retiming, looking at the operation, we're going to
The
optimize.
software inside it.
Well,
Make it
look-
work.
I do teach too, so I can talk a
Okay.
little bit more. So, no, seriously, looking at the green time, what's Route 5, Route 40, there's what we call splits. Is there an efficient split of time to the left turn lane, to through lane? Is that, because if you don't complain about an intersection,
Nobody looks at it.
I've seen it for you, that signal, like, why is this operating this way? You call DOT, oh yeah, we'll have to look at it in the retirement.
I
So-
remember one exit to the south and it was backing up on the highway and somebody looked at it and figured out it was programmed wrong
Because they-
and
yeah.
it's fixed it.
They do not go around checking for efficiency of signal. I can tell you that. They'd like to, but they're not.
They don't
gonna
have the
staff.
staff.
But,
Okay.
but I suspect that if there was a problem, that would have been fixed. That if someone had complained about there was a problem, it would have been looked at. But as part of the encroachment permit, it's likely that they'll ask for that. And they'll either say they'll do it because it's their signal and they were planning on doing it anyways. Or they say, you know what, you see, you're changing level service, we want you to retime that. And they may ask us to do that.
And the driveway in and out. My understanding from the conversations is it doesn't mirror the traffic light, but DOT would decide that.
Yeah, well, it's actually the Office of State Traffic Administration, they decide.
Okay,
And they're part of DOT, but OSTA, we call it, is the arbiter, they're the regulator of traffic signals. And they use what's called a manual on uniform traffic control devices. And that manual is a federal manual that we all use, and that has 9 warrants for traffic signalization. And you must fulfill one of those warrants. And the DOT, in the OSTA's eyes, and the requirements, you must meet one of those warrants to have a traffic signal. They don't just go out with signals like, in the old days, you could get a signal if you really wanted one, you could push hard click, you get one. Now it's pretty strict, so you've got to meet like these specific volume warrants for volumes, pedestrians, a railroad crossing, a school crossing, crashes, things like that. I go through all of them if you want, but we look at the volumes for this, certainly not pedestrians, certainly not crashes, obviously, we're not gonna have crashes,
Yeah.
something's gonna meet that. But, no school here, no rail crossing, so it'd be a volume warrant, and if you meet a volume warrant, we call it, if you meet like an 8-hour volume warrant, you'll get a signal for the most part, because that's the biggest one, you meet that one, you're gonna signal. So we looked at that as part of the study, and
it doesn't warrant
Yeah.
it. Do you think it would warrant, I'll say, left turn lane, you know how sometimes
Yes,
when you have
it
a
does.
through lane
It does,
road
it
and
does.
you have
We're
a.
showing left turn lane, yeah,
Yeah.
we're showing a left turn lane, yeah, it does warrant that. That's a different warrant
Okay,
than name it TCD. That's I'm sorry, I'm teaching again.
No, that's good.
That's a
I need it.
DOT's highway
Okay.
design manual. And in that manual, there's these figures that tell you for right turn lane, left turn lane, what's criteria. And it's based upon left turn volume, approach
so
volume.
like the queuing, so you
Yes.
don't get hit from
Well, it's
behind.
not really based on queuing, it's basically based on you making a left turn and someone coming at you. That's what it's based on, volume.
Yeah.
And so it does meet the warrant for that. So that's why left turn lane is there. And now, and DOTs will look at that left turn lane as well, part of the approaching permit.
They'll decide.
They're gonna, well, they don't have to do the left turn lane. They may say, well, it's not needed. They may say that, I haven't seen that, but the figure in the manual allows them to say, you know what, you should put a turn lane in it. If you're not proposing one, they can say, we want one. So the
Okay.
reverse is true. Okay, but we're proposing one. It makes sense to propose one there. It meets the warrant. And that's why it's shown on that plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
So on the encroachment permit, once that gets issued before the building even goes in, correct? All the traffic stuff.
Let's be clear. So the town approves this.
Mhm.
Okay, next step is to get the building permit, all right, actually build it. And the next step also is to get the encroachment permit. The encroachment permit is required for any work in a state highway. Okay, so that encroachment permit is related to the work that we're encroaching on. We are taking a site driveway, utilities, widening that was proposed. That requires a permit from the DOT, from the commissioner, because you're encroaching on the state highway. So that goes to the district office, District 1, and we submit plans to them, and they'll review the plans, the traffic study, the site plans, as well as the roadway plan showing the improvements. That'll be part of the encroachment permit process. That is not tied into the town process. Okay, that's not tied into, it's its own process, but the applicant cannot do any work in the state highway until you are issued. You can demolish the site, you can work on the site, you can grade the site, whatever town wants to approve, you just cannot do any work in the right of way.
So we did our due diligence by requesting this. This will go to the state level. And our good friend Joel, that will probably take a look at this. I'm sure you probably know who he is.
Well, Joel is the executive director of all the state traffic administration.
Yeah,
They don't have any jurisdiction
okay.
because, I'm sorry, I'm
That's
teaching.
okay. He's usually the guy we use to handle traffic, but he's not here
So
anymore.
Joe was in traffic, he's now the executive director. So OSTA.
Yeah.
Back to OSTA, they regulate all developments over 100,000 square feet or 200 parking spaces. Anywhere. Not in a state highway, anywhere in state of Connecticut, if you have a development that's over that, to meet those thresholds, they regulate it. If you're under that, they have no jurisdiction.
Okay.
Right, so yeah, you can reach out, you can reach out to him.
Yeah.
He's gonna say to you, thank you, you don't meet the requirements, and this goes to the district office, and he may copy some of this, Jason, the district office, may do that, but this does not meet, the OSTA requirements.
Okay. Any more questions?
I actually have a question for Jay. You were talking about the land across the street is owned by the development group. Is that directly in line with where the driveway is going to be? So cars, talking about headlights and all that, where cars pulling directly out the driveway, is that a vacant lot directly in line with the driveway?
For the record, there's JR, so. This, next lot south of that is the one owned by the development. Sorry. Starbury property is the one that's opposite.
So could you point out on the map there which one you're talking about?
Yep. So this piece right here, 112, 16, 11, if we go over it. Up here, the, That's the development team. They own this parcel. Next one is Starvish, and this is more or less where our driveway is. And then Zulo, the gentleman that just spoke up, he's on the next parcel, which is here. And then, of course, as we continue to go in this direction, we've got some other residential homes as we go down. This would be the driveway coming out of the state highway garage. But the actual line of parking, that parking field, actually is across from partially here, this lot, and it actually ends just about with this property line. It's between the development parcel and the Zulo parcel. That's about the end of the row of parking stalls.
Yeah.
Then the building.
I mean, I think probably from a nuisance standpoint, the parking is not gonna be the headlight issue. I think it's the driveway more
The
so.
driveway itself.
Because as people pulling out, they're gonna be sitting
Yeah,
there
they're
waiting
gonna be sitting
and the
there,
light's
you
gonna be
get
on.
the-
The people pulling the
Stop sign.
parking stop and they turn off their lights.
Yep.
So was there a possible way to reconfigure the entrance to be in line with that vacant lot at all?
I don't think so. I know they looked at a number of different iterations of coming in and out of the site, depending on how the site was developed. And in order to get the vehicles in and out and get the trucks
And the turning
turning
radiuses?
and have a main driveway that more or less served the Aldi to the north, and then the future pad site to the south, that's where the driveway made the most sense for people coming in and out, and kind of keeping the traffic flow separate from each other, if you will, want to call it that.
Is it in line with their driveway or their house, or wide enough that it kind of gets at both, you know?
Can you flip a few pages?
I mean, like I say, even if a couple of feet, so it's that more shining in the driveway versus shining into
In their-
the house, you know?
So here's our drive.
Mhm.
This is the parcel that's owned by the development group right here, from this line to this line, it lines up with the building. Dulo is over here, more or less across with the building, looking back this way, could see it. And this is, Starvish is a fairly large piece, it runs from here all the way over. I think this little, if you're familiar with it, if you've been out there, you see this little box here? If you were to drive by there, there's like a farm stand, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That's there, it's been there for decades. In fact, I believe he grew corn on this property and sold it out of that farm stand, so that's here. The driveway coming into the piece is right here, do you see that, you see these little?
Yeah,
like
that's the
half
curb
moons?
cuts.
So it's more or less opposite this, and there are a number of little cottages in there, I think like little rental homes, if you will. And then the actual house, the Starvish's home, is more over in this direction. It's kind of tucked up in this corner, if I'm not mistaken. So the driveways are kind of opposite each other where they come together, so it kind of makes sense to put it there. But that kind of gives you a lay of the land here in terms of what here. And then as we continue this way, then we're into the plaza with.
Yeah, I'm just,
Old man place.
I'm thinking the worst case scenario is when the car's sitting there, stops waiting for
Somebody
traffic.
sitting here trying to take a right or a left or wherever they're going, but it is more or less lined up with the
With the driveway.
existing driveway for across the street.
How far back is the house? You were talking about the elevation, or was that a different
The
property?
elevations here are similar to us. The elevation where it really starts to drop off in relation to the parking field. Once we get down into this particular area here, we're quite a bit lower in elevation here. Probably 5 or 6 feet of elevation difference.
H2 has the houses.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah, we don't have the development here, but anyway, this is the Starvish house that's here. And the driveway really is located over in this area. This is the vacant piece. This is Julo here, and there's about 5 to 6 feet elevation difference between the front yard here and where the ground of the parking stalls, and then we've got about a 5 foot high of shrubs that are there as well. So there's a pretty good elevation difference. So as I said, if you could imagine you're standing there, you're kind of looking up to look up at the property, and then you're eyesight or your line of sight is gonna go over the top of the shrubs and it's gonna keep going up. It's actually gonna block the view, I think, of the actual cars themselves, probably parked in that front row of stalls.
That's all I had. Mike, Ruth Ann, do you guys have anything to ask of the applicant?
Yeah, the items that, we had were updating the site plan to traffic flow pattern. We had questions, if you're not entering on both sides of that delivery aisle, and wondered why that section to the um, so we're wondering, it says do not enter here. Could this be opened up for vehicle traffic?
It doesn't seem like anyone leaving that section of spaces, particularly closest to the building, is going to follow painted stripe anyways, right? And the only reason, when the truck is backing up, I guess you'd have a do not enter, but otherwise, it would seem more efficient to have them go around the site than try to go through the parking area. You're just wondering why both sides are flagged.
So you'd rather not have this here, is that what you're saying? So that somebody could use this to loop around if they want, rather than drive through the parking field, take the roundabout around. Right, and if we could do it that way, certainly. We thought there would be some concern, but no. Truthfully, having had some discussions now with Bruno and realizing that, generally one delivery a day off hours during the night, that might make some sense to leave that open for folks to be able to swing around and come back out. And that's just a simple modification, simple design.
Yeah, general questions now, I got a few questions.
Yes, sure.
So Jay, let's talk about deferred parking. So it says here, should staff and commission determine within 6 months of the completion of phase one that some of the 18 deferred spaces are needed, the applicant will be obligated to install them per section 601-4. Correct?
Correct.
So I actually went to the Aldi site in South Windsor, and you guys are right. People don't spend a lot of time there. They're there maybe 15, 20 minutes. I didn't really believe you, but I go see for myself. I went 2 or 3 times, once on the weekend and a couple of times during the week. And most people went in there, they had a couple of bags in their hand. They were in there maybe 15, 20 minutes and they were out. So,
It's not a big store. It's not like, it's hard to spend a lot of time.
yeah, most people walked in with a couple of bags, they got their stuff and they were gone. It's like a bigger Dollar General kind of parking. I too didn't have any problem even on the weekend finding a parking spot. I thought for sure I was gonna go there and play around the circle, but I didn't. So that's good. We can add that deferred parking just in case. And if we need it, then we use it. We don't, we don't.
That's one section in your regulation that allows you to require it after a certain amount. And the other thing that eventually the website it's like or feel like
That's all I have.
Anyone else?
I have one more with the sign. There aren't details for the sign. So
Which sign?
the pylon sign,
Highlight sign or
Yeah.
highlight sign?
I want to front.
yeah, the high rise.
The highlight. We've provided a detail that shows a setting point. Always, the whole show, always doesn't show That was the.
Okay, yeah, I saw that as the fine part.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't-
It was a step.
Okay. Thanks to the. And we saw that the 200 square foot area proposed. It didn't make it. It sense. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Right.
The attachment that was included with this site plan application itself is a rendering of the pylon sign.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing anything. I think we could get it a different way. What we were thinking is because it's a general development plan, because we don't know the time frame associated with the second pad site, we had a detail that showed the dimension of the face and the height on the general development plan that was fixed as part of the approval, and we have to try to figure out what was approved, and it's memorialized with the actual general development plan itself.
Yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
not in the drawing set.
It was the paper with the lighting cut and all that stuff I saw.
And because it's only allowed through the general development plan, I just think having it on the site plan, we were thinking would expedite whatever down the road, because it would be.
Is it right here?
What's the first?
The, yeah, the truck turning on it. Truck turning radius. Oh, no, it had the, in queue for the, yeah, that truck radius. Here's the, that's from last week, weeks ago.
The additional square footage would just be directly below that, correct?
Same size.
Below it, yeah.
All these uses for all those so it's in the works right now, so when that's done, you get it to the planning office, and obviously that's a separate permit application. So once all those renderings and structural drawings and so forth, we decide.
Thank sheet, please. Thank you. All right, so this is a public hearing. Those of you who had signed up to speak. First one is Peter Zullo.
All the way from Sophia's all the way down. Bloom Grange first. It's at 156. And now with the the cut in that's being added on the bottom of the drawing, I could see all the rainwater collecting there, causing a big puddle. And I think it's saying still. I don't think that would be addressed if it's here. To deal with all that. Standing water. And the deferred spots, I know the 18 deferred spots is in the same spot that the topsoil pile is. I assume that this parking spot where we did probably just take away the dirt.
Stan Pelesky?
Stan Plesky, Right Tree Rubber. Is it possible to bring that back? One rendering that. So last time that we were here, we talked, and then we had talked about snow removal. And looking, I don't know if this line here, is this the fence line that goes along the state property?
Yes.
Okay. So what one of the suggestions was, is they were gonna take snow and drop the snow here. When you drive in, pull into Cracker Barrel, and you face looking north, you can look down this fence line and going by Dr. Google and putting a pin there on the fence on that building that the state owns. And looking down this, we have 30 feet from here to here. Now, they have there's telephone poles, a backup generator. Up in this neck of the woods, you can see where they've sunk the lawnmower numerous times. But water has to go down this way, and they've cut basically a shovel width, just a drainage, something to get the water going down. So if you pile your snow here, you're in this right in here and you dump everything for your snow. And we actually have a winter that's a real winter. You're gonna create nuisance water as soon as it takes and warms up, or we get the heavy rains like we do. And that state building is gonna experience flooding. There's not much. If you look down that, it's wet. It's wet again today. It has been wet. And that's one of my questions for developers. And like I said, this in here, and nothing against it, but snow removal, people don't do the job that was done, I'll call it, earlier on in life. I mean, they have a tendency to plow it to the corner. You end up with an ice chunk or dumping it, and there's a possibility if you got a hot storm, you could be creating a new. That would be the one thing that I'd ask the board to look at on it. I hear everything else about the curb cut and the winters across them are a great idea to keep lighting down. They've done some more homework on it and refined it. But we're really look at that for a little bit more refinement on this to be able to Because the state is our neighbors, we do pay taxes to the state, so. That's really pretty much all I've got on here. That farm stand's been there about 45 years. It's been there about 45 years. Because I worked for Starbucks many years ago. And it's there when I was a kid. I can't stay to work at 14. Thank you very much.
Paul Anderson?
Yeah, Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street, Broadbrook. Real simple, from the WPCA. I think we're gonna have to look at Calamar as opening soon. They have paid their facility connection charge. So that means that they're getting ready to get done. Because they're not gonna put out bucket loads of money on anything part of that development unless they're gonna finish. So for what it's worth in traffic, keep in mind that they are going to be open. So I think it's safe to assume they'll be opening soon. And I think that's important. As far as the traffic data, not dealing with the 330 potential apartments, I think that it's necessary to take any potential future development into account. That's on the books. It is. That's a potential future development. So we have to count that traffic impact as part of the whole package in that immediate area. Even though there may be major issues there, that isn't the point. Is it may be coming. It's reasonable to assume something will happen there.
On a new traffic study, they did take into account that was a new
Calamar.
revised.
Calamar, yes.
Yeah,
The other project, no.
we couldn't include that because it's not approved yet. They have to go the opposite. They have to do their traffic study according to what's been.
I understand what's being said, just telling you. That I think potential impact counts,
I agree.
not just approved impact. Big difference. We have to look at the potential that zone change wasn't done so they could do nothing. It was done so they could do something, even if it gets modified. So to me, I would say that's an important factor to keep in mind. That's all. And it's up to you guys. Okay, that's it. That's what I got.
Okay, that's all that signed up. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this application?
Joe.
Speak to his comment.
Normally what we'll do is we'll take all questions and then we'll address them all at the end. So does anyone else have any other questions for the applicant? Is there anyone online that'd like to ask a question of this application? Okay. All right, so now let's we'll take it from the top. I don't know, Jay, if you want to answer these questions or how we'll go back with them. So the first question was about additional screening by the entranceway further down. If that would be a possibility in the landscaping plan, provide some personal screening of the homes.
Just to make sure I understand. That's the entryway into some glass there. I think there's an entry. It's actually got it.
I think it's the one mostly facing the street, that side entrance there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Street, the entrance is basically parking area, but I think if I understand the concern though.
Okay, there's not, I understood it the same way. There's not an entrance on both sides at all?
No,
Okay, that's the way the rendering made it look like there's an entrance from both sides.
Story.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
on the corner, facing south. I know the current works, and I think this is the same. The carts are stored right there on your right-hand side. You pick up your cart and you store. So I think what Mr. Zullo is saying is there's going to be people there on that corner, if you will. And I'm guessing we could look at something in terms of vegetation on the side in the grass area there. I don't know exactly what that would be, but so if somebody's standing there, and I think his concern is they're not looking directly across the street, right at his house. And I think that's something we could probably look at and mitigate that to some extent.
One of the renderings showed it facing east, and that, so I thought they would be like walking directly. So seeing that.
Another concern was stormwater runoff from the entranceway. I don't think you've got that pitched going out into the Route 5. Isn't it all the runoff pitched backwards, or how's the runoff coming out of the driveway entrance itself? Well, you wouldn't be contributing to the runoff of that at all. And I think pretty much the other question about the deferred parking in a topsoil pile, usually those are just there for the construction period and they go away at the end, yeah. As far as snow removal, Jay, from the end of the parking lot to the fence, based on the drawing, I'm estimating it's about 90 feet. Is that accurate? If,
I don't think that.
because this is a 1 to 30 scale. So this looks at least maybe two, closer to 3 inches from here to here. You have a 30 scale with you?
I do.
I mean, from eyeball, it looks like 90 feet from the drawing.
Yeah.
Okay. So as far as, I can't imagine a snowplow guy pushing 95 feet across the grass to get it back close to the fence area. These guys usually tend to just push as far enough as they need to, and as the storms get worse, then they got to push harder to push the bank back.
30 scale?
But, yeah. Yeah, it's
3 inches.
The question about incorporating other potential properties into the traffic study. Calamar's was, the further one down the street has not. Personally, I can think of how many properties have we approved on Rice Street, other parts of town that have never gotten built. So just the fact of, not even Rice Street, Depot Street, corner of Depot and East Road, there's another one down there was supposed to be 100 and some odd units, never got built. So the fact that something gets approved here, we got about a 50% track record of them actually getting built. I mean, I hope it does. We got to, but the reality of it is you can't make a traffic study on something that maybe happened. That's my opinion on that. And, yes, sir. Yeah, I mean,
Here's the pen. Good.
what I don't understand is how the development will change any more rainwater.
Yeah, it's not so much the development. Here where it's cutting into the street. So cutting in. But it starts. And so as the water's running in, my concern is that to develop it in this area that's now not a straight line. and driveway's right here, so my concern is the water as it's running down the road. It's gonna go straight into, as it's passing by as well, but come into my driveway. That's my concern. We already have a lot of water that runs down the road. There's already a bit of an issue because there's no storm drains, and with the real heavy rain. So I just wanted to.
So I think his concerns, for the record, Jay Hurst for J.R. Russo, is that there is a slight widening on the east side of the road, because we've got a widening here, turning lanes and so forth. So there will be a little bit of widening on that side, which I think what Mr. Zumbo was indicating, that he already has a little bit of an issue now. I would look at this more as an opportunity to maybe do something to fix it.
Make it better.
We'll be doing a little widening. There's going to be some,
So everything sheet drains at that location?
it's out there in terms of drainage right now. Gutter, but when this is done, they will also probably get some new driveway aprons, and it gives them an opportunity to create a lip and maybe a slight pump in the driveway if he's got water coming down the driveway to keep it out in the road. And that's something that could be added as a notation in the plan before it goes to the district for the encroachment permit. If there's a little issue there, maybe we can address it and hit it up front and try and create a little better situation than what they have now. Okay.
Does anyone have any other questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on application PZ 2025-5. The applicant owner is Ara Hospitality Group, requesting site plan review and a special permit for the general development plan for 20,664 square foot Aldi supermarket and future restaurant with drive-through located at 151 Prospect Hill Road.
There's a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. The public hearing is closed. Okay. I think the applicant has given us some good alternatives or some commitments to how any concerns are going to be looked at and mitigated. Does anybody have any other comments, or we ready to have a vote?
I got one, on that approachment permit, when we made that a condition of approval for the aprons? For the driveway aprons, or that's
So
on the DOT?
I just read something out.
Oh, okay.
I can type faster than I can think. It would, my thought is, I just included that one of the things that the plan shall be revised to include is a notation indicating the driveway topography on the east side of Prospect Hill Road shall be reviewed to address potential stormwater ponding upon roadway reconstruction.
You got all that?
No.
I typed it, so.
It's, you're adding
It will be added into.
G under 4.
Correct. So I can read it again.
Read that when we get there.
Include a notation indicating the driveway topography on the east side of Prospect Hill Road. And I'm actually gonna, instead of saying I'm gonna say driveway, so that it's not specific to one property. Driveway topography on the east side of Prospect Hill Road shall be reviewed to address potential stormwater ponding upon reconstruction, roadway reconstruction. And I just want to touch on the two conditions, the general conditions that we have. Standard at the very bottom. We included the language 16, which talks about the deferred parking requiring the installation.
Yeah.
15 is in reference to based upon the time of year. We've done this before, but wanted to capture a landscape establishment so that we can make sure that if any of those plantings are necessary, they survive. We talked about the exterior site lighting, and then just clarifying that this is for phase one.
What about the sign? Or
That's,
do you have what you need, or do you still need,
That's a different permit, right?
it's a different permit, but I think she's talking about the detail.
That's for
We
A.
do have,
a detail? Okay,
four sign Mylar to add
okay,
detail to the high rise.
got it.
Okay. And then I'll entertain a motion on this application.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve PZ 2025-5, 151 Prospect Hill Road, special use permit for a two-phase general development plan with site plan approval for a 20,664 square foot grocery store, phase one. The approval is granted subject to conformance with the reference plans as may be modified by the commission and this approval. And the following conditions and modifications. The reference plans are the site plan for Aldi Grocery Store, 151 Prospect Hill Road, sheets 1 through 12, dated March 10th, 2025, revised to March 28th, 2025, prepared by J.R. Russo and Associates. There are three findings. One, the commission finds the application to be complete and that all information necessary to act on the application has been submitted. Two, this decision constitutes approval of the general development plan and phase one of the site plan only. A separate site plan application for the future development of phase two is required. Three, the commission finds the allowance of the requested deferred parking to be reasonable. There's 4 conditions which must be met prior to the signing of Mylars. Number 1, a paper copy of the final approved plans with any necessary revisions shall be submitted to the Planning and Development Office for review. 2, all final plans submitted for signature shall require the seal and live signature of the appropriate professionals responsible for preparation of the plans. 3, the conditions of this approval shall be binding upon the applicant, landowners, and their successors and assigns. 4, plans shall be revised to include the following. A detail for the proposed high-rise sign. B, a copy of this approval. C, reflect the revised pavement markings. D, reflect the updated zoning designation of HIZ. E, a bike rack, bike storage in proximity to the front sidewalk entrance. F, update the high-rise sign value in the table size on sheet 6. G, include a notation to driveway topography on the east side of Prospect Hill Road to address ponding. Conditions which must be met prior to the reissuance of permits are 5, 6, and 7. 5 being 1 set of final Mylars, select pages to be determined, with all necessary revisions shall be filed with the East Windsor Town Clerk. 6, a single PDF copy of the final plans with all necessary revisions shall be provided to the Planning and Development Office. And 7, an erosion control bond has been provided. Such estimate shall be reviewed and approved by the town engineer. There are 2 conditions which must be met prior to the issuance of a certificate of compliance. Number 8, final grading and stabilization and seeding shall be in place, plantings and appropriate ENS controls installed or adequate bond filed with the town for any unfinished work. 9, 1 electronic PDF and 2 paper copies of the as-built survey showing structures, pins, driveways, final floor elevation, and spot grade shall be submitted. And then there are a number of general conditions. 10, a separate permit is required for the facing of the freestanding high-rise and building signage. 11, the project shall be constructed and maintained in accordance with the final plans. Minor modifications to the approved plans that result in lesser impacts may be allowed, subject to staff review and approval. 12, additional erosion control measures may be required by town staff if field conditions necessitate. 13, any modifications to the proposed drainage or grading as depicted on the approved site plan are subject to review and approval by the town engineer. 14, by acceptance of this approval and its conditions, the applicant, owner, and/or their successors and assigns acknowledge the right of town staff to periodically enter upon the subject property for the purposes of determining compliance with the terms of this approval. 15, the commission may require a landscape establishment bond based on the timing such landscape is installed or the time of year of the certificate of compliance is requested. 16, in accordance with section 601.4, within 6 months of the issuance of the certificate of compliance, the commission may require the immediate installation of up to 18 of the deferred parking spaces as depicted on the approved plans. 17, exterior parking lot site lighting shall be dimmed or reduced during non-business hours. 18, the site plan approval portion of this approval for phase 1 shall be valid for a period of 5 years in accordance with the Connecticut General Statutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve this application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, performance bonds, actions, permit extensions, road acceptance, we have none. That was, I'm sorry, I'm ready. Okay, we have our new public hearing. PZ 2025-06, applicant owner is JMC Realty LLC. Is requesting a site plan review special use permit for section 502 of the East Windsor zoning regulations for the construction of a 7,920 square foot commercial building used as a contractor's office and storage yard located at 265 South Main Street, map 12, block 23, lot 57, zoned in the B2 and A1 district. Who's here to speak on behalf of this application? Just, can you start just by identifying yourself, sir?
Yeah. That's So it might be a very rare time, you know, when I was there, in traffic. Something in previous health training, but based on the fact that he was. He's done some, that's one of this way. To go back to that. For approval,
I think it's 7.
so.
So they need to go first?
They need to act before the
Yeah.
commission can act.
Did you get a copy of Luthann's memo?
I think there are a couple.
Yeah,
There's no, every day, side, right, on that one.
well, we'll just go down the list and then
Yeah.
we can go that way.
Well, just so the commission's aware, you had an engineer change.
Yes.
Mid-course, and we met with the engineer, Danielle and I, and Matt and Todd, who's your
Yeah.
engineer, to go through some items that we had identified so that they would be in compliance with section of chapter 6, the site development standards. And there is, the engineer is going to be reaching out to Len Norton to talk about the infiltration basin, and the drainage report that he prepared, designing that, infiltration basin. So, Len had cited in his memo, he had some concerns for risk of flooding and just wanted to understand that design, and maybe talk about another approach, but, so that's an open item. The need for parking, in accordance with 601, this is a contractor's office and storage facility. As Matthew had mentioned, he's planning to store all his equipment. He does have a small storage area indicated out in the back, but you had relayed that you might get rid of that,
Yeah.
that fenced in area in behind the office space. But for parking, in our regulations, the commission can determine based on the need for this particular use.
Yep.
It's not customer facing.
No.
And, so I think there's 3 spaces being proposed.
I think there's 4 total.
Handicap and
There's a handy, it's like 2 beside
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's 3. As I read it. it's
Yeah, I
3.
think that's, it looks at it the same way.
So that's. I want to make that out. The group. Proposed signage. Not on the plan. Maybe putting it on the plan, we could put a condition in for the need for a separate permit. For the signage in that time, because you mentioned you wanted to have a
Yeah.
monument type sign. right?
Yeah. Side of it, like.
Yeah.
They'll be adding the dumpster pad location. Put screening for that. We had talked about getting some sort of, this small berm, which I believe is to, or that the stormwater makes its way to the infiltration basin. We see it kind of up on the north side there. It's only 2 feet high, and it's proposed to have grass and some planting, so we want detail on that. And then they're gonna add the perimeter shade trees. And we see those going at the north boundary, across the front. And then there's a thick row of arborvitae between them and the next property, and then natural vegetation back. Adjacent to the wetland. The applicant's also proposing the use of millings, which is allowed by the special use permit. They have to comply with section 601.3 L. 1 through 6. And that's due to heavy equipment.
Yeah, you tear up a driveway.
So, and we asked if there was a clear delineation of where the millings were gonna go, because we don't see that on the plan. And then the question came up about the enrolled sidewalk. Matthew's the engineer had questioned whether we could require sidewalks on a state road. And
There's nothing there now, obviously.
there's nothing there now. And that brought to question the family. So that's an item that we're looking at. So Matthew's hoping to get some feedback because they will make another revision to their plans prior to because they're before wetlands at this time.
I'll just start, do you plan on putting any site lighting on the building at all or anything like that? Okay, so that gonna require photometric?
I don't
Plan?
think so. They're gonna give us the specifications. That was another item that we talked about. They're gonna be
Just downlighting, just,
downlighting.
just
Wall
basic
packs.
security type stuff?
Yeah.
As far as parking goes, though, do you have employees report to this location before they go out on the job site, or they go straight to the job sites, or?
So most of them just go straight to the job site, 'cause I'm all, some of these guys live.
I was just thinking like where employees are gonna park their vehicles, especially if you say there's times where you keep a lot of your equipment at the shop, but they're gonna have to come and leave their own personal vehicles and pick up equipment, things like that.
Honestly, I was thinking they either park in front of the bay or. Guys.
Thinking, just kind of like where, they just designated where they're gonna park or not.
I think you're step in the right direction. It's a great purpose for this property. You guys don't know, it's the old music barn, which has been vacant for 40 years. Probably 40 years at least. So you're knocking it down and you're bringing a business into the town, and hopefully we can help you out and get you in the right direction. Yeah. Good.
I have a question for Mike and Ruth Ann. With these, I call them metal kind of industrial buildings, we've used it, usually required two colors, two materials. Is that required when, I don't know if the building will be visible from the road. If it's not visible from the road,
I don't think it is.
less of an issue.
We talked about.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. If you look at the building plans on the elevation, there's like that horizontal where it'll be split. It's showing just black and white, but I think if you see that line, I think that's where
The color changes.
I think so. Um,
What the film looks like, if you could get it.
Yeah.
Oh, that,
Just like a color rendering or an example of the building.
we have.
Yeah. On the right path.
Okay.
Anything else, Ann?
That's it.
Dave, you have any questions?
No, I did notice up and down South Main, there were no other sidewalks. So. Nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can more played into the P and more.
I do worry with the limited parking, if he's gonna have guys coming in and out, you bring in a big maintenance, company to fix a piece of equipment. You might be a little light on parking,
Yeah,
just for your guys, maybe a couple extra spots might be nice to have to.
I agree. I could propose on the, if you're looking north side of the building, a couple spots on that side.
Perfect.
Okay.
Anything else, Dave?
No, other than that, as long as they've got, you know, something working with Len for infiltration, oils and stuff inside the building. It's gonna catch that if they are doing maintenance. I saw something in this. Find about that.
Jason?
I just wanted to review the reason that we're here for this special use permit is because there's something non.
No, there's two reasons. One is the use of milling and size of the storage. Yeah, over 2,000 square feet.
Wayne?
You know, it's operation. Here, I think, they really think about it. On job sites, we work until 8 o'clock at night till 3 o'clock in the morning, with no alarming, emergency or level. There, I don't think my guy's gonna work past. You be bringing equipment in and out in different hours or? No. If I did have equipment there, I need to get hauled out, it would need to be like 8 o'clock in the morning, and then those guys usually get done about 4 or 5 o'clock at night. Yeah, but like I said, if you need some jobs, I'm sitting there, I push to have no job site work. You have any materials you're gonna be storing to participate, like extra parts or, you know? So I do have like attachments for my equipment, I got trench boxes. I have a couple trailers that go behind pickup trucks. And I do have a sprayer, which is,
It's a, fiber screener for topsoil, which it's not a huge one, it's not like a industrial one, but it can sift through topsoil and get it cleaned up and send it back out. That was one of the things I would have over there. It's not a big one, I don't push that much material out. We usually do it on the job sites, they do on site construction, we usually do it all on site, but if I do like a small pop's house kind of job deal, you know, I'll bring it back, make a pile, and then we'll screen it, and then I'll send it back out.
You don't think you have any extra parts on your own building?
Parts meaning like, machine parts?
Yeah.
No, just like attachments, trailers, my truck properties, things like that, that would be behind the building. Nothing would be in the front view, but people jump by, that's it.
So that will have to be designated on the plan as your storage area.
If you're gonna have stockpiles of material or topsoil or things like that, you have to show on the plans where that's gonna be located.
Oh, okay. That's a good tip, so, you know what I mean, so I'll,
Well, if you don't draw it, then you can't have it. So if it's gonna be there, draw it on the drawing.
Draw a little circle. That's all I gotta do.
Stockyard.
Cause it's not there.
And don't forget, he's back pretty far too.
I understand, but
Yeah, you gotta draw it.
yeah. So this is a public hearing. Does anybody in the audience have a question or comment on this application?
Paul Anderson, 80. Yeah, no. Personal. It's constant traffic. So this is gonna have no impact of any kind. Not a problem. Pro business. Yay, team.
Anyone else? Is there anyone online that'd like to comment on this application? Well, as was said earlier, we can't act on this application until you're through wetlands. So if nobody has any other questions at this point, we can take a motion to continue the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing application PZ 2025-6. The applicant owner is JMC Realty LLC for a site plan review special use permit for a contractor's office and storage yard located at 65 South Main Street. And we continue it until our next meeting, which is April 22nd.
We have a motion to continue the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The meeting is continued till April 22nd.
It will be, April 22nd, May.
Oh, okay.
May meeting, May 13th.
May 13th.
So May 13th.
Amend the motion, yeah.
I'll amend my motion to continue the public hearing from May
The
13th.
chairman's in the back.
We have excuse me, we have an amendment to the motion to continue till May 13th. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now you're continued to May 13th.
Problem. Good luck.
Okay. So we have no old business, no new business,
Oops, I'm sorry. Just because I tried.
no other business. Any correspondence? No reason, nothing for a business meeting, no reason for an executive session, so No one has anything else. I'll take a motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
I
All right.
Meeting is adjourned at 8:10.